So, okay. So let's go ahead and start, and then I'll go through my whole listing presentation and how I do everything. Don't forget to sign in wherever the sign-in sheet landed. But first we're going to talk about how to get listing appointments, because you can be prepared if you want with all of this stuff, but if you don't have an appointment, like, what's the point of being prepared with all of this stuff, you know? So there's a couple different ways. Obviously, asking your friends and family, like, do they know anybody looking to sell? You know, having the script, knowing the mayor campaign, asking everybody the mayor campaign, knowing the just sold and just listed script, and calling around teammates or other hometown agents, just sold and just listed, and finding out if anybody wants to sell. You know, when you go to do an open house of one of those houses, knocking around there and talking about, hey, are you looking to sell? You know, this is the price of this house, because prices are crazy right now. And we all know that most houses are going for over asking price. And when you put that in front of other people and you're like, hey, this is what's happening, they're like, I may want to sell. And if there's a pause and a it's a, hey, well, let's sit down and just have a conversation. Like, I know I talked to a guy yesterday and he was like, I'm not looking to sell. I just want to know what my house is worth. I'm like, great, let's set up a meeting. Let's sit down. Let's have a conversation. Let me give you all the information. And he's like, no, I don't want to sign anything. I'm like, no, this is not to sign anything. This is no pressure. This is, here's the information. And then it's all on the follow-up. And it's just following up with him, because that gets his wheels turning. And eventually he's going to be like, yeah, I want to sell. Or he's going to be like, hey, maybe it's 6 months down the road. You know, one of my teammates just put a house on the market. He's been following up with them for 2 years and they're ready to sell now. So there's lots of different ways, but making phone calls, knocking doors, you know, talking to friends and family, asking for referrals, and just having the knowledge of what's going on in the market. So having the knowledge of this is where prices are versus prices last year. This is how many days on market we're sitting at versus last year. Like, here's how much inventory we have versus how many buyers we have. Like these are all the reasons to go ahead and sell now. And not only that, having the way for them to move. Because a lot of people are like this gentleman I talked to, he's like, well, I could sell and I'd get top dollar, but where would I go? And I was like, well, sir, that's part of what I talked to you about when we sit down, is how to get to your next house smoothly and how to find that next house and find it in a, you know, in a way that you're not paying arms and legs. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, that's part of this. Like, I'm not here to make you homeless. And he was like, okay, we can sit down. Call me in 2 weeks. I'm working on some stuff. Like, I want to talk in 2 weeks. And I was like, great, Monday at this time, work in 2 weeks. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, great, we'll talk then. But you need to have answers to both sides, because most people who are selling are going to be moving to the next place. And that's what scares them, is they see all of this frenzy and they don't want to get a bunch of money, but then have to pay a bunch of money. Right. So have those, like, I sent out a postcard and I'm sending out another one to another neighborhood. It's called the Stay Sell Search. So basically, as I sit down and talk to them, they're going to start fixing up their house. I'm going to search on the back end. So I'm going to search on things that aren't on MLS. I'm going to search for things that, you know, I know through the grapevine, through other realtors that are coming on the market. I'm going to search for homes that maybe have been on the market a little while and would be willing to take like a first right of refusal kind of thing. I'm going to search for stuff that's not right up front, that isn't 2 days on market. We're reviewing offers on Friday. Like, you know, that's not what I'm searching for in this situation. While I'm doing that, they're getting their house ready. So they're putting that last coat of paint on. They're putting, you know, pulling up carpet, putting new carpet on. They're decluttering, they're packing, they're doing all those things that my stagers told them to do, that I've told them to do, to get top dollar for the house. And then when we find that perfect house and it's off market, A, they don't have to pay an arm and a leg, and B, I don't have to worry about putting a first right of refusal on it, because this is the situation they're in. We're going to sell their house. We're going to sell it this weekend. We're going to be under contract. We're going to line these two up and do Bob B. It's done. And the person on the other side's like, oh, well, that's easy. But now you found this house off market. So guess who you have to now get a house for? Is the one you found off market. And so you sort of domino this down. But those, you know, sitting down with your clients and saying, these are all the options to both sell your house and to buy the new house, you've now given them the power to decide without them going off the, you know, train tracks. They have like 3 ways to do it, because that's what you want to do, is you want to guide them, but you don't want them to end up over here. You want them to stay within like what you were trying to get them to do. I always tell my clients, I'm your bumpers. If you've ever gone bumper bowling, I am your bumpers. Like, I keep you in between two things. You can play within these pieces. If you start going out, I'm gonna rein you back in. And that's my job, is to help you stay within this, because I don't want you to go outside your budget. I don't want you to go, to compromise anything that you want in the house. I don't want you to, these are the things I don't want you to do. And it's the same thing for my sellers. Like, I'm your bumpers. Does that all make sense? So knock doors, make phone calls, know your mayor script, talk to all your friends, talk to your friends of your friends, because somebody always knows somebody who's looking to sell or buy. And those are how you get your listing appointments. So
how often do you follow up on calls?
So I have multiple different, that's a multifaceted question. So when you come into me, the very first call, it starts a progression of 10 days worth of follow-up, where I make 10 calls and 6 text messages in 10 days, basically. And so I'm trying to get you to respond. And if in 10 days you usually don't respond, then I'm going to go to weekly calls.
Okay.
And then in about a month, if you don't respond, I'm going to go to monthly calls. So it's consistent. I'm one of those that until you die or you tell me to stop, I'm going to call you, and I'm not calling to check in. I am always calling with a, hey, you said you wanted a 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom, or 2-bathroom, 3-bedroom house, and I found one in this neighborhood that you might like. What do you think? Or, hey, just wanted to let you know interest rates dropped again. What are you thinking? Or for the sellers, like, hey, I've got a buyer who might want your house. Are you still thinking about selling? Actually, this listing appointment is because I have a buyer thinking about this. And so I called her and she was like, actually, we are thinking. And then through the process, something happened with the family and she's like, we're putting it on hold. But it's constant follow-up. The average realtor follows up a little less than 3 times. If I can hit 3 times, I followed up more than the average realtor. And in 10 times, last year it was like 6 times it took to get a deal. This year it's now 10 times to get a deal. I can usually at least get them on the phone and find out what is your motivation. So, and then I can pivot from there. They're like, oh, we're just getting information. Great, let's sit down and have information talk. And then, in 2 weeks, I'll follow up with you. And then we'll decide what the follow-up process is from there. Or if they're like, yes, I'm ready to go, do it now, let's do it now. Let's sit down, let's put together a plan, let's go, let's get this ball rolling. So, okay, so we'll go to the listing appointment. So when I come into a house, I greet the clients, and then I'm like, hey, let's go ahead and sit down at your kitchen table and let's chat. I am not opening this up. I have not pulled this out of my bag. I'm literally just like, where do you want to go? What are you thinking about doing? What do you think of your house? What do you think your house needs? What are your plans? I'm asking lots of questions to get lots of information from them that I don't always get over the phone. So I'm filling in what I didn't get on the phone and listening to their story. What are you looking for in a realtor? All of those pieces. So it gives me information for when I sit down to open this packet and go through my actual listing presentation, I can craft it to meet what they need. Because if I find out net or what they make is going to be the most important thing to them, and they're like, well, we need to make X, and if we can make X, we'll sell, because then we can move here. And then I can be like, okay, as we sit down, hey, you're making X, or no, you're not making X. And I can, harp on that part. Where if it's like, oh, we need this certain price, or no, we need to move to this certain neighborhood, or whatever the need is, if you've got the wife who's, oh, well, I want big marketing, I need all the marketing, then I can really dig into what I do marketing wise, where some people care less. They're like, just get it sold and make me this much money. So when I first walked in, I'm literally sitting down and having a conversation. I don't want to see the house yet. I don't want to pull out my listing appointment yet. I just want to get more information from him. Because I don't always have the time, and they don't always have the time to get it over the phone. And once I set an appointment on the phone, I'm off the phone. You get the appointment set, I get off the phone, because I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth if I don't. And so I am off the phone, and I'll ask you all the other questions later. So, yeah. So it's a sitting down and talking to them. And it's also a time where I can empathize with them, and I can sympathize with them on what's going on in the market. I can be like, hey, answer a little bit of questions when they're like, oh my God, we don't know where we're going to move. I can be like, we've got some plans. Here's some thoughts of mine. Let's do this. So we can, I'm building a relationship in about 5 to 10 minutes by sitting there asking a bunch of questions. And then I know how to craft the rest of the appointment. Because if I come in and I go hard on my marketing and they could care less on the marketing, what was how am I gonna win that appointment? You know, after we have a conversation, you'll know when it starts to fizzle out, or when you feel like, okay, I've got enough information to do this. You can be like, hey, how about you show me around your house? There's 2 ways to do this. You can either be like, hey, show me around your house if you've got time, because they're going to go into detail about what they've done, what they've updated, like the parts of the house that they like, the parts of the house they don't like, that kind of thing. Or you can go, hey, do you mind if I take a quick walk around your house, take a look around, and then we can talk, sit down and talk some more. It's up to you. It's also up to your time constraint of which way you want to go. Some of the bigger houses, or some of the houses downtown, I will definitely say show me around, because they've done a lot of work to it, especially these older houses. Like, I want to know what you did. I want to know what's behind the walls. And you will tell me what's behind the walls when they're like, oh yeah, we took down the walls and we replaced all the knob and tube and we put in all new, plumbing and all this. Like, that's helpful to me so I can price your house well, but it's also helpful when I put your house in the market to be able to market like new plumbing, new electrical, all of that, especially when you're dealing with 1910s and 1920 houses. But some of these newer houses, you're like, hey, do you mind if I just go take a quick sneak peek around, see everything, see what's going on, and then we can sit down and talk if you want to grab like some waters or things like that. And you can run it that direction. So it's up to you which way you go. Then I'll come back to the table. That's when I pull this out. So I have a folder. It is this folder. My goal is 100 listing appointments this year. So I bought 100 of these in the beginning of the year. When they run out, I know I reached my goal. You can buy these from any of the hometown offices. I love them because they have hometown on them and they look really, really nice, So I'll sit down with this. I've got 2 sides. I have my listing appointment on this side, and then on this side, I've got a couple things. I've got a quick CMA from the MLS, and this side goes second. I will always talk because it's numbers. I also have, this is 2 other ways to look at pricing. So this is pricing compared to your Zillow estimate, and this one's pricing compared to your tax assessment. So it sort of evens out the playing field for everything. And then I always bring, but I am not the pushy salesman, I just bring it. I always bring every single piece of paper they will have to sign, 99% filled out for them. I will leave out things like price, I will leave out dates, but like I will have in here, like if you look at this, it already has the commissions in there. It already has like, yes, you're good with the lockbox, but every piece of paper that they have to sign in that listing agreement is in here, mostly filled out. And I'll tell you at the end of this what I do with it. Those are my 2
Was that
sides.
a contract?
Mhm.
I couldn't see.
Yeah. So let's go through my listing packet. So when I first started, I just used whatever was out there. Whatever my team had is what I used as my listing packet. I didn't take the time to make my own. I wanted to hone what I said. I wanted to hone what I did, and I wanted to figure out exactly what I wanted in my listing packet. And so if you have, access to a team listing packet, use it. If you don't, there is one on MLS. It's not, I will tell you, it's not the prettiest, but it gets the job done. So don't spend a ton of time actually making your listing packet until you've done a bunch of appointments and you know what you want to say and what you want in there, because there's a bunch out there that just have a bunch of stuff and you may not want to use it all. It may not fit your personality or what you do. So I actually made this one this year, actually. So first page is just all about me. It's got some of the stats. It actually has a little bio about how I grew up in Virginia and actually in Richmond, where I've lived in Richmond. Just a little bit about me and my stats, how many I've sold.
Was it just you?
My virtual assistant.
Okay.
Yeah. So how many I've sold, price I've sold, that kind of thing. Second page is just why I do this. So it's pictures of my family. It's pictures of, things we've done. And it's just, I'd introduce like, this is my daughter, this is me and my husband. This is why I do this. This is what pushes me to serve you well, because I, want to take care of them. This third page just talks about my social media. Because I'm always like, hey, I really like to give a lot of value. I like to answer a lot of questions and, just tell people about how to buy and how to sell and how to do all of those things. So if you want to check me out, go here. And yes, I have QR codes because they're the easiest way to get them to my social media without them having to type in a long freaking address. You scan the code, you put your phone up and then it takes you there. So I talk about this. I am coached by Tom Ferry, who's one of the top, or he is the #1 coach in the United States. I talk about, hey, you know, the reason I have a coach is because we all know trends start in California. He's in California, he's based in California, and so I get to see the trends that are coming over to us before they even hit us and be able to implement them for you and get your house sold for top dollar. And that's literally my little script on this. So, and then I go into my marketing approach, AKA what I do to get your house sold. I always joke, I was like, these pictures don't look great on here, but if you go online, these pictures look amazing. I get pictures done by HD Bros. They actually do pictures and video. I know you've all seen those pictures that you can't either, the windows are blown out or the inside is so dark you can't see it. If you look down here, you can both see inside the room and you can see what's going on outside. This is the reason I do these pictures, is because I have to sell it to people on the internet before they even walk into your house. So I don't want any cell phone pictures or, you know, somebody who's just coming in and snapping a camera to take pictures of your house. I want them to look amazing. So, and then like that, this is back to the beginning. If they're big into marketing and what are you going to do to market my house? We spend a lot of time on this page, a heck of a lot of time on this page. So I talk about how I do postcards. I usually do somewhere between 200 and 500 postcards once I put your house on the market to say that your house is available. And that's because we know people who are in your neighborhood usually know somebody else who want to move in your neighborhood. So why wouldn't we announce it to your neighborhood to say, hey, who the heck do you know that wants to be your neighbor? And you know, then I'll actually follow up with a phone call and be like, hey, just want to make sure you got my postcard. You saw that this house is on the market for this much. You know, what are you thinking? Do you have anybody that's looking? You know, that kind of thing. I follow up with a phone call. We also have access to what we call reverse prospecting. It's basically a list of agents from the MLS that have somebody that's looking for your exact house. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put together this amazing email, send it out to all of those agents, and basically put it in their inbox of come and get your person in this house. I can also see in that list who's liked and who's hearted your house. Those agents, I personally call if I don't see them on the list of people coming in and be like, hey, you have somebody who's hearted this house. When are you coming to see it? So I'm actively reaching out to agents to get them in your house to make sure that your house is seen by everybody who needs to see it. Of course, you know, I'm going to put your house out on Zillow and on Trulia and all of the websites out there. There's thousands of them out there. We want to get your house out to as many people as possible so that we get as many people as possible in. I also take everything and put it out on my social media. So it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's on all of those, it's on LinkedIn. Again, I'm trying to get your house in front of as many people as possible so we get as many people as possible in your house. We do open house events if you're comfortable. I know during this time, not everybody's comfortable, but if you are, the reason we do them is if you think about an open house happening from 1 to 3, that's 2 hours that normally I can only do like 12 appointments. If I do an open house, I could get 30 to 40 people through easily in your house. Again, back to more people in your house, which equals more contracts, which equals a higher price and people fighting over your house. If you're not comfortable with open house events, we completely understand and we will support you in that and we'll try to get somebody in a different way. You know, maybe we do it a little longer on market. Again, back to that education and Tom Ferry, all these things have come from him and come from my team of putting it together and getting your house out there the most. I am here to create both clients for life. And then, you know, we all know you're moving and you got to pack and you got to put it in a truck to move it. Cool thing about my team is we have 2 trucks that are available to you for free. We've got little Sebastian right here is the little one and Hugh for Humongous. You don't have to deal with U-Haul, Ryder, Enterprise, any of those. You just come pick them up, fill them up and drop them back off. And so these are all the things that we do for you and to get your house sold. So, and then I go over to the timeline. So this is how to sell a house with me. I'm not going to go through every single piece of it, but basically what it says is we talk about price, we sign the contract on Monday, we do pictures, Tuesday we list, Wednesday or Friday, everybody starts coming in. You know, the weekend goes by and we start reviewing offers, yada, yada. But this is the timeline, basically the monopoly of how you get from where we are now to that sold sign in front of your house. So, and then I have one that we talk about where you find your people. So the majority of the people find houses on the internet, which is why we do these beautiful pictures, because we want them to get on the internet and see them and want to get into your house. And then the other piece, they find them from real estate agents, and I usually poke fun at this yellow one that's actually, some people still find it in the newspaper. And we can talk about how in 5 years, we think that newspaper piece is gonna go away and have a good laugh. Especially with the older generation that actually got the newspaper consistently. So I talk about when we put the house on the market and it goes out to all these websites, it's not just gonna be on my website, it's actually gonna be on all the big major companies' websites, because it is like, every company pulls from the MLS. So if you go on our website, anything listed by Remax, Keller Williams, Long & Foster, whatever it may be, they're all gonna be on ours, and vice versa. They don't need to know that. They just need to know that we're gonna put it on everything. We talk again about this whole, I'm gonna put it all over Instagram, so again, everybody can see it. And I go again into, hey, it's gonna go all over the place on, on the Trulia and Realtor and all of that. Again, to emphasize, hey, these people finding on the internet, this is where we put it out on the internet. So.
And where do you get all that information?
All of this.
Yeah, where is all that coming from?
What do you mean by information?
I mean, like that.
The stats and stuff?
Yeah, the stats and all that.
Keeping Current Matters has a bunch of stats. There's a bunch of websites out there that has a bunch of stats. MLS has a ton of stats that you can pull.
Okay.
John Hicks will give you a bunch of stats. They're all over the place that you can pull stats from. Then I usually make a joke that this is what everybody actually came here for. They actually want to see what the price is, because then I'm going into comps. So comp wise, if you want to know how to pull comps, that's a discussion we can talk about later, but I'm usually trying to look for something in and around their neighborhood and close to everything. I will sit down and I didn't for this one yet because I hadn't seen her house, but I will sit down and talk about like, hey, look at this house. Look at the features this house has versus like what I saw in her house. I'll point out like, hey, these pictures aren't that great. You can see they're a little darker. Maybe they haven't updated yet. You've done all this updating. Like, I'll just start comparing and contrasting the houses, because the first thing they're gonna look at is this price up here. I usually have this sheet, because this sheet has what it listed for. This is just what it sold for beside me. So I can start with, hey, yeah, we listed this, or this house was listed on Dell Drive for 320 or for 289.9. It sold for up to 320. And the reason it sold for 320 is I'll pull the pictures up and I'll start talking about the pictures. And I'll compare and contrast with their house and what's going on, so that they know, hey, this is where we fall. And I always tell them, because they'll see the 320 and they'll be like, I don't want to sell mine there. I'm like, I go lowest to highest. We'll figure out where you fit in that whole range once we finish all this. I just want to tell you what's going on in your neighborhood. And I will go through this whole entire, stats. It has all the pictures of every house. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I have a whole, usually good 8-12 pages of nothing but pictures. And then like, I'll finish, this one's the highest. So Elmart, I'll be like, well, Elmart was on the market for 350, but it ended up selling for 370. Let's take a look at what it looks like. And you can see it's all nice, gray, white, it's super bright. You can see the pictures are done well. Like, this is how many days it's spent on market. I'll go over that. Like all of those bits and pieces so that they have all the information. Depending on my conversation in the beginning, if my conversation was really, really price heavy and I need to make this much money, my next step is just to stop going through this whole packet, pull out these two, because this is my next sheet right here that I'm going to write on. So I pull out these two and we just start talking price. And the way I talk price is I'm like, hey, I look at your house 3 different ways. I look at it as straight average over here, which for this house is 347, and that's the straight average of the solds of your neighborhood and your comps. I will look at it, your Z estimates versus versus your sales price. And I usually make a joke here. We all love to hate Zillow, and I'll be like, Zillow's actually getting a lot better, but it's still not perfect. It is a computer generated program that pulls comps, where I'm actually digging into the comps and pulling something, really, really close to your house versus just what the stats match up. But it takes all of the houses and sort of levels them out when you pull all their Z estimates and compare it to their sold prices. So, if your Zillow estimate's 345, if I priced you right now, I would price you at 340 if I was pricing you just by Zillow. And I'll say whether I think that's high or low, depending on what I thought of the house. And then I'll be like, the other thing is, none of us want to sell for tax value. Tax value is way too low. tax value. We want to keep it that way because we don't want to pay a ton of taxes, but too low to sell for. But again, it's a good gauge to compare your tax value to your sold prices and see where you sit. Because it is, everybody's tax value is the same or really close to it. And so I'll be like, hey, your tax value is 277. So, if I priced you by your tax value, I'd price you at 370. I personally walk into a house with at least a $20,000 range of where I think your house should be. And then as I go through and sit down and talk with you, I will narrow that down. At some point, either in the conversation on the phone, it's usually in the phone conversation, I have already asked them what they think their house is worth. And what they think it should sell for. So when I walk in with all these numbers, I am prepared to either make them really, really happy or talk about why their numbers are where they are and why they may be lower than what they're expecting. So I've had that conversation and know where I'm standing. I will again ask like, hey, seeing all this, what do you think your house is worth kind of thing. So just so they can confirm either, hey, they're happy, or confirm, you can usually see the ones that get mad, like they start like sitting back and like, that they're getting mad at what you're saying. But then the other reason I stop here is if, they're getting upset and they're saying, why the heck are we getting to the point that, you're not pricing my house at 400 where I think you should. I've got all the data just right here that I can go backwards. I can be like, hey, do you remember seeing this house that sold for what you want? See where it is. If we did some sprucing up to your house, we can get this, but we definitely need to do some sprucing up. And I can rely back on the pictures and go backwards and just talk. So at this point, we're usually talking a range. I do a net sheet of the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. Hopefully not iPad mess. That's at 10%. Worst case scenario, best case scenario. And I will fill all this out. So I'll ask them what mortgage they have, first and second mortgage. I will fill out like, hey, if I look here, they paid an average of about $3,000 in closing costs. So I will fill out some buyer closing costs here. I will fill out roughly what the title company is going to charge them. Again, I estimate high on all of these. I will fill out what the termites is because I know how much my termite guy's going to cost. If they have a well and septic, I know how much that's going to cost. So I'll fill that out. I will give them down here is their taxes and insurance. They're going to get some of that back. I put like $300 down here, and I always tell them, I don't know exactly how much you're getting back. This just represents that you're getting some back. It might be more, it might be less. So I will fill out as much of this sheet as I can and then give them a number at the bottom and say, this is a rough estimate of we're going to land somewhere between here and here. I was thinking with this market, you might land over that best case scenario, but I don't want to promise you the moon and not get it for you. And they usually all laugh at that. But then we can talk numbers a little bit more in depth of what they're okay with and be like, is this what you were expecting? I'll fill it all out. I literally fill it out as I'm sitting there. They're usually chatting. I'm chatting with them. I'm got my phone out doing all the math, and then I put it all there. I'll flip it around and I'll be like, hey, is this what you were expecting? And one of them usually says yes. The other one usually has their head in the sky. And it's like, well, I thought. And again, we'll go back and we'll talk about, here's what the comps are. After we do that, I'll flip it over and I say, these are some of the recent sales I've done. And I'll show them like some of these have sold at value. Some of these have sold way over value. Like, where's Pennick? Like this one sold 50,000 over. This one sold almost at, this one sold over, this one sold a little under. So I've got a good mix in here of like what sold over and under, just to give them a good mix of like, hey, these are some possibilities, as well as this is more of a sheet of like, look what I can do kind of thing. I don't want to call it a humble brag, but it's a brag. And then talk about like, hey, these are some people that sold with me. You're welcome to go look up more reviews on Zillow or on Google. And then I always make the joke, because this is like 8 pages long. I'm like, if you need some good reading material to fall asleep to, and you want to know every single thing I'm going to do for you, just go ahead and pick this up and start reading. And it'll tell you everything I'm going to do for you, both behind the scenes and let you know and talk to you to get your house sold. And I will literally flip through this pretty slow pace so that they can get, oh, like, look at all this stuff she does for us. It's just about 4 listing packets pulled together that I made. And then at the end, I'll be like, hey, we all know we need a little bit of fixing up. So I have a list of people that I love to work with that have done work on my own house. And these guys, you're welcome to use them. If you need more than just this, let's talk. So, and then I'll ask them if they have any questions while I'm literally doing what I'm doing now and getting everything back in the packet. If they don't have questions, I'll be like, one last thing. Like, not to pressure you now. If you want to go ahead, we can go ahead and sign this and fill this out. Otherwise, this is all the paperwork you will sign. I'll go through it with you the day we sign it. I usually have it signed on picture day, just because I have some time restraints of when you sign this, like how long I have to put it in the MLS. But this is all the paperwork you sign. You're welcome to look through it. If you have any questions, please let me know.
So you leave that with them?
All of it stays in done.
Okay, so do you have an agreement in there with them, an agent agreement with that?
Like a buyer broker agreement.
Right.
Mm-mm. This is all just listing. If I know that they need to list and then buy, I
really what I'm thinking of is an agreement for you to be their agent.
So that's your listing agreement. So your listing agreement is your,
Okay.
and so, but when you sign a listing agreement, you have 3 days to put it in MLS. Most people are not ready when I meet them for me to get it in MLS in 3 days. What I can do, you're welcome, ma'am. What I can do is I can put a coming soon in there, and if they are ready, if they can get ready in 21 days, we can get them to sign a coming soon. I can sign all the paperwork. Again, I have 3 days to put it in MLS, but I only need 1 picture now, and they can get everything ready. So that's the other reason I don't make them sign it, is I want to feel out how long do you need? Because when I walk in, I've walked into a house that I'm like, oh, this has to be perfect, and I'm like, crap, you need paint, you need carpet, you need this, you need that. Like, we can't do this in 21 days. And I've walked into houses that I'm like, oh, this house is going to be not so great, in the part of town. And I'm like, oh, this is gorgeous. Like, we could put this in MLS in 5 days if you wanted to. I can get pictures done 2 days from now. So it really, that's why it's only partially filled out and why I don't require it at that time.
So the MLS date is 3 days of what, a signing?
Mhm.
Okay.
3 days from them signing, you gotta get it in. And it's from the last signature. I always have my buyer information in my bag. So if they need to buy if they need to sell to buy and the next step is to buy, I will pull that out and we'll talk about buying right there. And the process, but it's up to the appointment and what they need. So, but I always tell them, I finish up, I ask them if they have any other questions, we chat about questions and stuff. I tell them that this is yours to take home or to keep. I'll call you in tomorrow to see if you've got any questions. I go home, I send them a note card thanking them for their time for me to sit down with them and talk about their lovely house. And then I call them the next day and be like, hey, do you have any questions? What are you thinking? I'm trying to, during the beginning process where I sit down and during the process on the phone, I'm also trying to see if they're interviewing other agents so I know who I'm up against and what's going on. Because that can also, knowing who I'm up against can help me tailor my presentation to fit that person and to point out some of their pieces. A lot of teams are like, oh, you'll get, you talk to such and such to make the appointment, and then you're going to talk to such and such, and then you're going to talk to this person, and it's like 5 or 6 different people. And I can sit down and be like, you're going to talk to me and only me. I'm your person. I am on a team, but I'll be your point of contact, and I will be here for pictures. I will be here for this. And I can reassure them that they will only get 1 person. Because some people, that's what they want, is they don't want to talk to 15 different people.
Most people don't.
Yeah. And so, I can tailor this as I know who I'm up against, which is what I'm trying to find out at the very beginning to be able to go through this packet well. Because there is a part here that I talk about, I'm on a team and you get, me, but I've got 13 other people. If you don't want to deal with the market, I can sell your house off market through these 13 other agents that I have through word of mouth, basically. So lots of different pieces that this morphs into as I figure out what they need.
Does that also work with for sale by owners?
Mm-hmm. It's the same stuff. It's just tweaked slightly for them. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about with for sale by owners is statistics of, most for sale by owners leave a chunk of money on the table by not using an agent. And if you look at those real estate transactions that have led to a lawsuit, most of them are for sale by owners because they're just not protected. You don't have the protection of an agent that knows what protections you need. and what protections the buyers need and what papers need to be signed. So you leave yourself open for a big lawsuit by writing this little, your normal, because they just usually use a 1 or 2 page transfer thing. Like you leave yourself open to a lot of things, and I'm here to protect you. So for sale by owners is the same packet. It just has a slightly different spin on it with statistics and things. So, and I don't put those in the packet because I want the packet to be the basics that I can then build off of.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's my listing presentations,
Great
guys.
information, great information.
Keep it simple.
Now, sit simple.
Yeah.
That's what I just said.
Yes, she did, actually.
I can't imagine.
Right.
You said the word simple.
Yeah.
I'm still at thing 4.
As you- and
Huh?
So get the presentation. So when I joined the team, he has a ton of pages available that I used for my listing presentation. I told Dave Brown this, and I told everybody on my team this: print them all off, lay them all on your floor, look at all of them, and figure out which ones you want and how you want them to be ordered. And then just start practicing what you're gonna say at each one. And so when I joined the team, I wanna say I went through 5 different morphs of my listing presentation before I got like what I wanted and how I wanted it structured. And it's the same thing, like this came in sitting down and looking at, it's actually, I think, 4 listing presentations smushed together. I like this piece of this, I like this part of this, and tailored it to me and what I wanted to say with adding, what I already had. So it's a labor of love to put together a listing presentation, but it's also, you need to practice. So talk to your dog, talk to your family, tell them to be like, sit down, I just need to talk. Like, I just need to tell you these things and talk through this and make sure I'm making sense in my head, and have them give you those hard, like, well, what happens if, when the buyer goes, well, I've got another agent that'll do it for 5%. What do
I
you
had
say?
that yesterday.
So what do you
I
say?
had that yesterday. I said, well, there's I said, our brokerage firm requires that we do 6%. And I think there's a lot to be done. And I just, it's just like, okay.
No, I just, if
And
somebody,
this is a guy that had a for sale by owner.
so if somebody says that to me, it's, Hometown Realty requires me to do it for 6%, and I
Right.
just shut up.
Yeah,
And I don't say
Exactly.
anything else.
you don't say anything else. Okay.
Unless-
Negotiable.
Correct. If, and
Right,
that
it's
is
not
saying-
negotiable,
But that, when you shut up, you create dead air, and
Uh-huh.
whoever speaks first loses.
Yeah.
So you say your piece and you shut up and you let them speak first, and most of the time they're like, okay, no problem, and off we roll.
Mhm.
If they push back again, I've got 5 different scenarios in my head to talk to them about, we love free clinics. Free clinics are great and they need to be out there, but when you need some type of surgery,
Specialty
are you
or
gonna go to a
whatever.
free
Yes.
clinic, or are
Yeah.
you gonna go to the best?
Right,
And you're not gonna care what price point that the
Exactly.
person's at. Your home is your biggest asset, and your home needs the care of not a free clinic, but of the best.
right.
That's a
So
good example.
Yeah, that is a very good example because health means a lot.
health does mean a lot. So there's a lot of comebacks to that if they push again. But my first step is just, nope, Hometown Realty requires 6%, and I just
Right,
shut up.
Tell your story.
Well, I mean, and he said to me, I know how much my home is worth, and I just think that's too much money. Well, I don't know how he knows how much. home is
Everybody
worth,
has to tell
but,
you. It is. So, and there's others like, well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to get my home sold if I don't get it? So if you don't get it sold in 60 days, can I get out? Like, there's so many different pieces that can go back that they can ask you. And that's where just practicing scripts and practicing and knowing what to say, is the way to go. So,
If you're practicing something, but you don't know the answers to that necessarily,
mhm.
that's a
Well,
tough
if
practice.
you don't know the answers, that's where you ask seasoned agents. You go to the Hometown Realty, the binder that we give you has a bunch of objections and objections handlers.
right.
If you follow Brian Buffini, Tom Ferry, any of those, all of those have objections and objection handlers. So there's places to go. The Infinity
has
Manual.
a bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I was reading yesterday.
Yeah, and you just practice those. So like, literally do your listing presentation and give your kid the objections and be like, ask me 3 of these throughout the presentation, so that you can practice your objection
That's the
handles.
practice, because then you're ready for whatever.
Yeah.
comes up.
Yeah.
Then it just rolls off your tongue and you go.
That's right. You don't have to think about it.
Correct. So, and don't talk yourself out of a sale. A lot of people do it. When you go to a used car lot, your car salesman is usually like short, sweet, and to the point and lets you talk because he knows whoever talks first loses. So say your piece and shut up.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now, you kind of spoke to this earlier, right? So like they're technically not your client till they sign
Correct.
like the paper, right? And then if you know that they're talking to multiple agents, right, it's still not a guarantee. Would you still go through all the information that you went through to try to win them over, or do you hold back some information?
I go through it all, lay it all on the table.
Gotcha.
So, because, and like, if I don't go through it all, like I could lose for something that's in here that they didn't look at.
Gotcha.
So you're actually selling yourself by going through it.
By going through everything that I do. And that's the other reason for talking to them in the beginning, is figuring out where do I need to focus, because where is their focus? You know, I'm actually gonna start putting some of my cards, not business cards, but the like postcards that I send out. I'm gonna start bringing some of those to say, hey, these are the postcards that I put out to show them what goes out, you know. So like, you know, I have props to say this is what's going on, so that they can actually see it versus this little teeny tiny box in the presentation.
So if you're not on a team, which I am not right now, just
MLS has one.
MLS packet.
If you click CMA on the MLS, it'll make you a packet.
Oh, it will make it for you?
You have stuff to fill in. You've got to pick out the comps and everything, but it has a whole sheet, like it's got a whole set of sheets and everything. That was my first listing presentation I did, and one was I did it off of MLS
Okay.
because I wasn't on the team at that time.
Yeah.
You can also cloud CMA, and there's a couple other CMA websites you can sign up for that have a bunch of sheets and things that you can use.
And you go under CMAs.
Yeah, so the one I printed out here, this one is the quick CMA.
Okay.
They have a full CMA that you can fill out. I don't mess, when you get into that CMA and there's a place to like start messing with pricing and like deducting and adding and stuff like that. I don't do that because I just start talking about it in the presentation, and then I say, hey, you know, you're above this house, you're below this house, like this is where I think you are, and here's why. But I won't get into the nitty gritty of
So
like.
you don't recommend doing that? Because
It's totally up to you. It's just not my shindigs. I know
it's time consuming though.
it's time consuming, and like, how do you know how much to take off for an extra bathroom?
Yeah.
Or add for a
You
garage?
know,
Yeah. So after I see the house, you know, I have a feeling of like, okay, as we go through, like, yeah, this one has a garage, but you don't, but you have an extra bedroom, you know, so like, as you compare and contrast houses, I can be like, I'd put you about here, you know, just looking at the comps of what's going on, because you can see the pluses and minuses to each. No, when I made my first CMA, I was walked through that CMA and how to add all of that. I'm like, how do you know how much to take off for a garage?
Yeah.
For this one, I
I
do
don't-
that. Like, that's just not me thing, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at it as a whole and then just be like, and things like when I do a CMA, if you're a 2-bedroom house, I will only comp you to other 2 bedrooms. You're in a totally different world if you're a 2-bedroom house. If you're a 3-bedroom, I will comp you to 3 and 4-bedroom houses. It depends on like it depends on the bedrooms. Bathroom wise, I will try to make sure I stay, like if you have 1 bathroom, I will try to make sure I stay in that 1 to 1.5 bath, and I don't comp you to a 2 bath. Because again, it changes slightly. If you have 2 bathrooms, I don't care if I'm copping you to a 4-bathroom house. There's certain, as you sell houses, you'll see like the 2-bedroom houses like only sell to a certain population. Just because you're going after, you know, young professionals, you're going after, you know, singles, you're going after a certain demographic, where once you put them into the 3-bedroom house, to them that's family.
Yeah,
So, you know, as you sell on the buy side, watch the trends. So when you go to do your CMA on the sell side, like you can take those trends with you
Mhm, gotcha.
and learn how to comp.
CMA.
Mhm. Any other questions?
Great job.
Thank you. That's my short version of my listing appointment.
That was super helpful.
I'm glad.
Gosh, thank you so much.
Yeah.